Welcome to the overworld. Wes here, and today we're going to take a look at a simple melon farm. I put these in a couple of different places in my world. This one happens to be right behind this rack of automatic brewing stands here because melons are good for brewing potions of healing. So this is one farm right here. Oh, this is kind of interesting. The front of the pistons are blown off. It's just a glitch in the game. This one actually is based on a little delay circuit. This is a monostable circuit here, and it comes off of a signal coming from the outside from a daylight sensor. Well, now let's cruise over to a place in the game where I've got two of these set up side by side. One is based on a traditional block update device, which most people are using to make these melon farms. And the other one right next to it is based on the daylight sensor, like the one I just showed you. So let's cruise over there. Okay, so here we are in one of my AFK locations. This one happens to be my XP farm. You can see I got a lot of XP right now because I spent over 40 hours here testing different melon farm designs to see which ones would give us the highest yield. So now let's go up and take a look at these two right now. This one over here on the right is based on the daylight sensor, and that one over there on the left is based on the block update or the buzz switch. Okay, so you can see they're both the same configuration for the number of pistons and the number of melons and things like that. This is that chest we were just looking at. That's just a little daylight signal that I've got set up there. So here comes the signal from the daylight sensor down a little tower here. Okay, goes over here, and this is just a simple monostable circuit that gives us a quick pulse when the daylight comes out. And this is just an inverter. And this right here is pretty important. This is just a real simple delay, quick delay. The signal just travels around there very briefly and holds the pistons on. So it's not really a delay, it's kind of like a little pulse extender. So that brief pulse extension is what makes it so that you can get 100% yield when the melons get knocked off. In other words, you don't have any glitching out and hanging up on the edge right there. Okay, so I use the same design over here. This happens to be the one that uses the bud switch. Okay, I've got a delay on this one as well. I just copied the delay here, although there's two different ways, or multiple different ways you can do it with the bud switch. To get the delay. I'll go over and take a look at that little switch. Just to make it so it was a common test, I put exactly the same delay on right there. But so here's a little block update device right here. So when the melon grows, signal travels through it, okay, and comes across here. Now you can use that little repeater right there to give you a pretty good delay. So you don't really need these. You can time it the same, by just putting full delay on your repeater. Or if you want even a longer delay, you could put another repeater in there and set that on a relatively high delay as well. Now, based on all this testing that we did here, we found out that the day-night cycle in Minecraft is just a little bit faster than how long it takes melons to grow. So that's why the system that's based on the day-night cycle, I think it harvests a little bit more frequently than the one with the bud switch. So I found after a bunch of testing here that I got about 10% more yield with that system. And then combining that with a good delay makes it so that you don't have any glitch out and lose those. So that's how you get about 20% more yield in this system. Okay, so let's let these dogs set up here, and then we'll zip over into creative and take a detailed look at one of these builds. Okay, so here we are in my little creative demo world, and I set this up to demonstrate and also basically to test what happens when we put a little signal extender down. So this switch over here just goes through that monostable circuit, and now it's directly hooked up, and that just shows you what happens when you have a relatively short pulse going into your pistons. So very often you get some of the melons or pumpkins or whatever you've got will hang up and not fall into your water trough. So let me just show you. I'm just going to add a little signal extender over here, similar to the one I've showed in the survival world. I used this design on a lot of different things, like doors and other devices. Okay, just putting two comparators down like this lets the signal race around it a couple of times, and it extends the pulse just slightly. So I'll just go over and show you how this works. This would simulate, a signal coming from the bud switch or the daylight or any other device you had timing this. Now, see the pistons stay over just a little bit longer. I tested this over 40 times, and I got about, 100% of the time I get all the melons coming off. and I get about a little over 18, almost 19 when I have this little pulse extender, and only on average about 16 without it.
So for those of you who are interested, we'll do a little block-by-block tutorial now.
Now, I've used this design multiple times in my survival world because melons only grow in the chunk that you're loaded into. So it's such a real fast build. You can do it anywhere in the game. I just put it in wherever I think I'm going to be spending a little bit of time. This is how you build it. First, you're going to dig a trench that's approximately 8 blocks long because that's how far water will flow. This is going to be where the melons are going to grow right here, right next to it. This is going to be where your water is going to go down. And then you're going to dig down here to find a place to put a chest. And then your pistons are going to set back here 1. So dig it out, put a piston in, and dig all these out here. Get it ready to put the... So you alternate the pistons here. And then I put glowstone down between them, but if you don't have glowstone, put torches down in there. It really helps to light this up a lot. Melons grow faster when they're in a well-lit area. So let's throw down a chest. We're going to put a hopper down at the end of where the water's going to flow, and that'll just make sure you feed it into the chest. So you crouch, shift click, and make sure the hopper's feeding into the chest. Now we're going to get ready to put the water down and plant our melon seeds. Oh, let's see, I won't need that anymore. Okay. Just having the water flowing along here, just make sure the ground is saturated all the time. Then you have to use your hoe to prep the ground. Always do it right in front of where your light's going to be, okay? Because the melons need to grow in front of the pistons. So you're planting the stalks here in front of the glowstone or in front of the torches or whatever light source, okay, you've got there. Then we're going to run redstone along the back here. That's just going to power all the pistons when we want to. So that just sends power into the blocks behind the piston. Then we're going to run down here. I mean, you can do this any way you want. You can come out of the middle like I did in a couple of designs that you looked at earlier. I put my little delay circuit, or I would say pulse extender here. There's multiple different ways to do pulse extenders. You can do these with, stepped repeaters and things like that. But this is just a real simple way that I like to do it. Like I said before, this is something I've used many times in my survival world.
It's getting pretty dark here. Let me cut out and set the game up for daylight so you can see this a little bit easier. Okay, so we're back, and now we're going to make a little monostable circuit that's based on signal inverters. So this is how you make a little signal inverter. You just put down a block and put a torch on the front of it, and that, see, this will send a positive signal in here and all the pistons will be fired across. So now we want to invert that, and we do that by just putting a redstone signal into the back of the block. So now we're going to make a little monostable circuit that's based on that. Put a little repeater down here. Make sure you put it on at least 2, or you can put it on full delay if you want. Because what we're going to do is put a little signal inverter up on top of this thing right here. When I put the torch on it here, it's going to light this, okay, and shut off the pistons because that's an inverter there. And then we're going to put redstone up on the back of this so that when a signal comes into this, it hits this block on the top, inverts the signal briefly, and the repeater that's set on the delay will then turn the signal back on again. So in this case, we're taking that signal and then re-inverting it. Now looks like I got a little bit of a potential problem here. I might be too many blocks away from that inverter to send the signal all the way down to the piston on the end. Let's give this a little test here and go check that out. Now, I made this really long like this to make it so you could see how everything works, but you can make this a lot more compact, of course. Whoops. Yeah, let's throw down some melons here. We'll just make sure they all fire. I don't think this one right here is firing. Let's go back and check it out. See if we can get this witch to walk out of here. So we'll shut the signal off real quick. And then we'll turn it back on again by putting the daylight sensor on the top of it. Okay, you can see it run down there. And yes, of course, the melon on the end is not knocked off, so let's put a little repeater in here. If you just made this thing a little more compact, you wouldn't have to do that. Hopefully I've explained how everything works so you can make this thing fit in your world. Let's go back and throw some more melons down. There our witch is finally leaving. Now the reason that melon glitched out right there is because the piston next to it didn't fire. Okay, now if you want to, there's I'll put a description or a link in the description screen here about how to make these monostable circuits. I've made a little video on how to do that. But this basically completes the build and how to use the little daylight sensor. This is Wes, and I'm out.